Hello everyone, my name is Redbeard, and today I want to talk about the content we could get for the 3 races in Omens of Destruction after the DLC launches, now that we know all the lords, heroes, units, and whatever else coming with that package. Now, of the 3 races, Khorne, Greenskins, Ogres, Khorne has the least missing after this DLC. Some may say that, Khorne doesn't need any content after this. But I will play devil's advocate for this video. Even though I might say they might not need another DLC, they might just need an FLC. Or a string of random FLC. Who knows? Now, in an ideal world, the final DLC for Total War will include a little bit for every race, which is essentially what the end times for Warhammer Fantasy should have been. A celebration of everything that has come. So, yes, every race would get at least a legendary lord, and maybe 2 to 3 units, and if they are still missing a legendary hero, make sure they get that up, tie up any loose ends like that, or generic lords or characters. But mostly just making sure that every race gets, again, a legendary lord and 2 to 3 units. In an ideal world, that would be the final DLC. Which I think is where what I'm going to be talking about today for Khorne may come into place best. Though again, FLC could be another route for any of these characters or units. Now, starting with legendary lords, I think the best probably option for a 4th Khorne-specific legendary lord would be Egil Styrbjorn. Now, granted, his story is more of a Norscan story than a Khorne story, but he's absolutely a Khorne-marked character. And excuse me if I need to catch my breath from time to time, I am still sick from my last video. So my thing with Styrbjorn and Norska is that Norska, I believe as is, should remain mostly an undivided force. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's 4 legendary lords that I think should come in a Champions of Chaos, quote unquote, but Champions of Norska style pack, which is Sile the Faithless, Mona Mim, Bjorg Bearstruck, and Lord Mortkin. Until we get those 4 lords, I wouldn't want to see Egil Styrbjorn in the Norscan roster. But if we get those 4, then I suppose we could get Egil Styrbjorn, but I don't think we're going to get any more than 4 more characters for Norska. So, and besides the fact, I don't know that he would add a whole bunch for Norska, except maybe as part of Norska, he could recruit demon princes of Khorne, sort of like Be'lakor can do, but just specifically for Khorne demon princes. That would be really the only thing I think he would bring unique to the Norska roster. On the other hand, I think he could bring something very unique to the Khorne roster, in that he could have the monster hunt mechanic from Norska. So in all forms, he is a Khorne character with Khorne mechanics, Khorne roster, but he just happens to have the monster hunt mechanic tacked on. He would also be able to purchase hell cannons from Zumara, which I will come back to. He's a Chaos Dwarf Lord ally. But then, kind of like Arkham the Black, he would have a handful of Norscan units available to him that aren't available to other Khorne factions, such as Skin Wolves, War Mammoths, and Marauder Hunters with Javelins. If we got some DLC for Norska, he could also potentially have Skin Bears, Shield Maidens, Ymgir, which are Beastmen, like kind of like a mix between Yetis and, Bestigors, maybe. So yeah, between those two mechanics, monster hunts, because he took down nameless chaos horrors, a dragon ogre Shaggoth, and a great sea serpent, ice trolls. He fought all these things in single combat. So monster hunts to the Khorne, to a Khorne faction. Again, Norscan units as a hybrid faction can purchase hell cannons, but also he could potentially have kind of like a Tamerken's Chieftains or a Marcus Wolfheart's Hunters, because he has 4 in particular characters. So the first one could be Bajarki, I think I'm saying that right, who is a Bretonnian Khorne cultist who could essentially be like a legendary hero mix of a cultist and a blood speaker, maybe. I think that could be pretty interesting. The next one is Zumara, who is a Chaos Dwarf Lord, who would, you'd be able to purchase, again, hell cannons from him. And then there's one specific hell cannon, which would be like an ROR, maybe, called Ereskagal Namtar, which is a, maybe like twice the size of a regular hell cannon and has, it's closer in power to like a Queen Bess, maybe. But it's a hell cannon, so it has homing projectiles. And maybe that's the difference. Maybe it shoots off multiple projectiles instead of just one. But they're all homing. But yeah, so then Zumara, Bajarki, and then there's what's her face? Haig Tess, which is his sorcerer wife witch, who together they birthed his son, which was immediately a demon prince upon birth. Think kind of like Scar Bloodwrath is what his son would grow to be. So then there's his son, which could be another legendary hero as well. So those 4 right there could all be legendary heroes for him. So again, right there for a Khorne faction, I think there's plenty unique. Mostly just in the hybrid Norska bit, but again, could have some like unique heroes to him. Not that Khorne needs more legendary heroes. Again, these would be exclusive to his faction. We already have Karanak, Scar Bloodwrath, and Sila Anfengrim. That is why I didn't include any more legendary heroes on this image, because we just don't need any more for Khorne. Not while other races are missing them. The other idea is Grydal and Urlfdaemonkin. So I would have them together in one faction. Grydal would be your actual legendary lord. He's a demon prince. You see this image now. He'd be what you would expect a demon prince of Khorne, just like a unique version. Flies around, has a lot of different abilities, very good in combat. So the mechanic here would be that Grydal could summon Urlfdaemonkin. Sort of like Malachi can summon a Thunderbard, so like after a minute of the battle ongoing, you can summon Urlfdaemonkin, so you'd have 2 demon princes of Khorne right on the battlefield with Grydal and Urlfdaemonkin. And Urlfdaemonkin would have an ability which is kind of like Arbal, where he can turn other units into Chaos Spawn, although maybe his is for single entities. So it would work like Executioner, the unit gets below 20% health, and you can activate this ability on them, turning them into like a single entity Chaos Spawn of Khorne, I guess, maybe like a Blood Beast. Or maybe it turns them straight up into another Demon Prince of Khorne. So maybe that's like the gimmick of the Grydal and Urlfdaemonkin campaign, is that, right from the get-go, you could get 3 Demon Princes of Khorne in a battle, like your first battle. Which would be very silly, but kind of fun. So, again, Egil Styrbjorn, I think that's the best option, but, Grydal and Urlfdaemonkin could be something too, as like one faction. So then on to Archaon's lieutenant, Haargroth the Blooded. So he, again, I've talked about him in the other Archaon's lieutenants before. I think Archaon's lieutenants should be like a Tamarken's chieftains or a Marcus Wolfheart's hunters, just like I talked about with Egil. But they might be like, it's the same kind of mechanic, but instead of them acting as heroes, they would be lords. Same mechanic, just lords instead of heroes. So yeah. Haargroth the Blooded would allow Archaon to, recruit some more Khorne type units and get more Khorne type buffs to his armies. Essentially, he would just be a very tanky character for Khorne. He'd be sort of like Arbal in that he's a very armored mortal champion, but he would have a shield and an axe. As far as I'm aware, Haargroth never had any sort of mounts, but you could potentially give him a Chaos Steed. But again, his whole thing is he would just be a tanky character with that shield and armor. Moving on to generic lords and heroes. And yes, besides what CA has said, which with, we had to they had to get Bloodspeaker lords from a single line of lore, and there's nothing else. That's just not totally true. You could totally just make a Bloodspeaker hero. I get we have cultists, which kind of fill that niche in a way, although not really, because cultists are more about summons, and Bloodspeakers are more about battle prayers. So maybe a Bloodspeaker hero, but the real thing is Khorne Beastmen. So Wargors, Beast Lords, Doom Bowls, Gore Bowls. Any of those lords or heroes could get the marks of Khorne. I would really like to see Khorne marked Beastmen lords and heroes at some point, but at this point I'm not sure that they're going to go down that route. We'll see. So on to units. There's a couple of these I have already talked about, but Flayerkin are more of an undivided unit technically, but I think they could work on the Khorne roster. Essentially, they're clan molder, strap these guys, their arms with blades that could help them climb walls and, rip apart somebody's armor. But also, they have, chains on their backs, which is so they're meant to climb the walls, and then other entities' units are supposed to climb those chains that are essentially grafted to their spine. Pretty grotesque, but yeah. So, Flayerkin, good at climbing walls, good armor piercing. That could be a unit. Blood Cursed would essentially bring an ethereal unit to the roster, because their whole lore is their flesh and body and bones are all gone, but Khorne basically cursed them that their blood would manifest their spirit still. So, and it's just another infantry unit, and all of these, it's do we really need more Khorne infantry? But, again, it's a ethereal unit, so think of Sirens or Cairn Wraiths, but on the Khorne roster. Then there is Brass Sisters. So this would essentially be the Khornate version of Shield Maidens, which should be a unit for Norsca at some point. Basically, a unit of female warriors that are probably a little less armored, but faster than other infantry in the roster. So think 40-something speed, maybe 60 armor, shielded. Although the Brass Sisters might be a little more armored than the Shield Maidens. So that maybe the Shield Maidens have 50 armor and the Brass Sisters have 75 armor, or something like that. Which, piggybacking off that, Valkyries of Khorne. So we have Valkyria, and same kind of situation. Norsca, I think, should get Valkyries at some point. They were at one time a hero unit for Norsca, I think in Oldhammer, and also an actual unit. So, I think Norska should get Valkyries. I would like to see them as like a Doom Knights of Tzeentch type unit. Flying knights with multiple entities. But, maybe a single entity could work too. So, and then this Valkyries of Khorne would just be the Khornate version of that. Essentially a unit version of Valkia. Demon units. So Blood Chariots were missing from this DLC, which is, it's essentially a Juggernaut pulled chariot with blood letters on the chariot. So it gives you like a demonic chariot, which we don't have. All the chariots are mortal. And, these guys could maybe be buffed by Uzul, which, Blood Crushers should be as well. But from what I've seen, they are not. Then we get on to Blood Hunters and Howlers, and these guys are the champion units from Tabletop. So Blood Hunters is another name for Blood Reapers, which is the hero version of the Blood Letter. So the Blood Hunters would essentially just be like an aspiring champion, so think 12, 16 entities in that range. But it's Blood Letters, Exalted Blood Letters. So, is this something we need? No. Especially when we didn't get the Aspiring Champions Mortal version, which should have been Skull Reapers and Wrathmongers, but apparently CA were cowards about it and didn't add that. So, whatever. It's alright, I'll live. I mean, technically, they're like a different offshoot, sort of. They're, the Scaramore tribe. So, not just any, Chaos Warrior could become a Wrathmonger necessarily. But anyways, so Blood Howlers would be the champion version of Blood Crushers. So, think probably like a 3-entity unit. Think Knights of Torgaval, but they're Blood Crushers. So, 3 entities, very powerful champion type unit on Juggernauts. Then we get to Khorne marked variants. So, as I've said before, Khorne marked giants, Khorne marked chaos dragons, and then we don't have it yet, but the Great Spine Chaos Beast could have different marks. I think all those things would be interesting. Not necessarily, but still interesting. But yeah, so that sums up all the things I think could come for Khorne content after. If you think I missed something, please tell me, because this is kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as Khorne is concerned. So yeah, again, I think in an ideal world, we'll get the final DLC for Total War. Will include a little something for every race. Otherwise, I think these things could maybe come as FLC. Not all of them. Again, like Blood Hunters, Howlers, that's really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I don't think we need those things. The other things I'd be interested in. Bloodspeaker Hero, we don't need. Khorne Mark Beastmen would be cool. I don't think we're going to get them. I definitely think we should get Archaon's Lieutenants. I would like to see Egil Styrbjorn in some way. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thanks for being here. Peace.